using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. So I'm Emma, 38 female, and I need to get this off my chest. Do you know those family dynamics in which one child can do no wrong while the other appears to be invisible? Yes, welcome to my life. Everything was very typical until I was 9. I was an only child, and while my parents were not particularly warm and fuzzy, they were present, I suppose. Mom would help me with my homework, and Dad would occasionally take me fishing on Lake Huron. We weren't the Brady Bunch, but we were fine. Then came the night that would change everything. I recall my Aunt Diane showing up at 2 a.m. and telling me to pack a suitcase because Mom was in the hospital. My sister Chloe was on her way, but something was wrong. She wasn't meant to arrive for another 3 months. The following few weeks were a flurry of hospital visits and hush chats. Chloe was really little. She looked like one of my baby dolls, but with all these tubes and cables, I wasn't allowed to touch her or get too close. That was the first time I felt it. An invisible wall forming between me and the rest of my family. When they eventually brought Chloe home, our house turned into a sterilized bubble. Mom had an obsession with germs. I'm talking industrial-strength disinfection throughout, hand sanitizer stations in each room, and constant cleaning. The harsh odor of bleach still causes me distress to this day. But here's the bit that really messed me up. Whenever I showed the slightest symptom of illness, I was whisked off to either Grandma June's or Aunt Diane's house. I mean, every time. Sneeze once? Pack your bags. A mild cough? You're off to see Grandma. At first, I thought it was enjoyable. Grandma June would make cookies, and Aunt Diane had a fantastic collection of mystery books that I was working my way through. But children are not stupid. After a while, you begin to understand what is actually going on. You are not being sent away on adventures. You are being handled as a threat, as if your entire existence could damage your beloved sister. I tried everything to gain their attention in a healthier manner. Honestly, everything. Got all A's? Mom would scarcely look up from Chloe's most recent doctor's appointment calendar. Won first prize in the science fair with a project about renewable energy? Dad just asked if I could store the display board in the garage since Chloe is allergic to cardboard dust. Is this even a thing? The real kicker came when I was 13. For months I'd been practicing for the school talent show, teaching myself to perform Bridge Over Troubled Water on the piano. I know it's a little too obvious. Chloe had a 99.2 fever on the night of the show. Guess who did not have anyone in the audience? Meanwhile, 2 weeks later, the entire family, including both sets of grandparents, attended Chloe's 15-minute flute recital, during which she basically killed hot cross buns. Chloe immediately learned how to use the system. By the age of 7, she had outgrown any real health difficulties, but that didn't stop her. Headache? Must remain home from school. Feeling tired? Someone else guess who should perform her tasks. Worried about a test? Mom would literally call the school to have the deadline extended. I began spending more and more time in my room, immersed in books about art history and antiques. It's funny how life works out sometimes. My room became my sanctuary, mostly because Chloe claimed she was allergic to my lavender air freshener, so it was the only place she wouldn't go. Do you know what is actually wrong? When she pretended to be sick, a part of me felt grateful. At the very least, I'd be taken to Grandma June's house, where someone would ask about my day or be interested in what I was about. Grandma was the one who sparked my interest in vintage jewelry. She had an incredible collection of costume pieces that she let me organize and catalog. I suppose I should have regarded it as prophetic. The worst thing wasn't even the clear favoritism. It was how they rewrote history to excuse their actions. Chloe just needs more attention because she had such a rough start. Emma's always been so independent. Emma understands that her sister has special needs. No, I did not understand. I was a child who didn't understand why having a good immune system made me less deserving of love. Looking back, I can see how these years shaped me. The persistent message that I was somehow unsafe or inconvenient to be around doesn't just go away. But hey, at least it taught me to be self-sufficient. When no one checks your homework or cares about your triumphs, you quickly learn to be your own cheerleader. High school. The majority of people either loved or loathed it. Me, I regarded it as a ticket out. While Chloe was establishing her drama empire in middle school, I was laying the groundwork for my own escape. And let me tell you, nothing inspires you to accomplish more than knowing that no one will do it for you. Remember how I said I spent hours sorting Grandma's jewelry collection? That taught me a valuable lesson: the need for systematic organization and attention to detail. In high school, I approached everything with the same perspective. My desk at home resembled something out of an organization magazine: color-coded notes, meticulously organized study plans, and everything in its place. Chloe teased me about it, calling me Rain Man. Very great, sis. But here's the thing about being invisible. No one is monitoring your failures or successes. So do whatever the heck you want. I joined every club that would not interfere with my part-time employment at Miller's Diner. Thank you to Nancy, the owner, for remembering my birthday when my own parents had forgotten. Debate team? Check. Who is the National Honor Society president? Check. Who is the editor-in-chief of the school newspaper? Check. The debate team was where I truly found my voice. There's something quite rewarding about shattering someone's argument while maintaining complete composure. It also taught me how to negotiate, which I didn't realize at the time but would be useful later. I won states twice. Chloe had major soccer games, therefore my parents were unable to attend both competitions. She was on the C team, did not even play the game. Junior year was when things truly became interesting. I took the SAT and received a perfect score. Not like, oh, pretty good. Perfect. 1,580. You know how many people get that? Less than 1%. I remember staring at the results screen for almost 20 minutes, convinced it was an error. I rushed home to tell my parents. Mom was in the kitchen helping Chloe with her English homework. The conversation went something like this. Me, Mom, look, I got a perfect SAT score. That's nice, honey, but can you keep it down? Chloe's trying to concentrate. She has a big test tomorrow. Yeah, some of us actually have to study, Miss Perfect. Chloe, sweetie, don't stress. You're just a different kind of learner. I still have the hard copy of those SAT results someplace. Never got pinned on the fridge. But Chloe getting a C+ in English? That baby received prime refrigerator real estate, complete with a heave. We're so proud of you, Magnet. College applications were interesting. I applied to 15 schools without informing anyone. I wrote all my own essays, gathered my own recommendations, and handled all of the financial aid paperwork myself. My guidance advisor, Mr. Parker, was the true MVP. My parents were too busy to help me with FAFSA, so I stayed after school and figured it out myself. Then the acceptance letters started arriving. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan, and every single one came with scholarship offers. I stored them all in a locked box under my bed, because I already knew what would happen if Chloe found out. Suddenly, everything would become about her. But if Emma goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone. Or some nonsense like that. The day I got my full ride offer from Michigan, Chloe made junior varsity cheerleading. Guess which one got celebrated with a family dinner? Hint, I sat in my room eating microwave mac and cheese while they all went out to Olive Garden. But you know what? That scholarship was my golden ticket. Tuition, room, board, book allowance, everything covered. I could finally leave that house where I was either invisible or inconvenient. The day I received my acceptance package, I went to my favorite place in the local library, a fourth-floor window seat overlooking the park, and I cried for an hour. Not sad tears, relief tears. When I finally told my parents over dinner that I was going to Michigan, they were horrified. Michigan? That's so far away. What if Chloe needs you? I hope you're not expecting us to help with expenses. Chloe's cheerleading competitions are very expensive. Meanwhile, Chloe's response was, "Oh my God, finally. Can I have your room? I need more space for my videos." The summer before college, I worked double shifts at Miller's Diner to save money. Nancy, bless her heart, always made sure I got extra tips and let me take leftover pie home at the end of my shifts. She also taught me something important: how to recognize real people in a world full of fake ones. Baby, she'd always say, in diners and in life, the people making the most noise usually have the least to say. Move-in day at Michigan arrived, and surprise, my parents couldn't come. Chloe had a cheer competition. Aunt Diane drove me instead, helped me move into my dorm room, and handed me an envelope with $500 inside. "Your grandma wanted you to have this." She's proud of you." Later, I found out Grandma had been putting that money aside little by little for months. That first night, sitting alone in my dorm room, I made a promise to myself. I was going to build a life so good that being overlooked would become impossible. Not for revenge, not to prove anything to my family, but for that 9-year-old girl who used to get sent away to Grandma's house every time she sneezed. College went by in a blur of all-nighters, instant noodles, and incredible freedom. I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Michigan. Not that my parents noticed. They were too busy helping Chloe transfer to her third college in 2 years. But this is where things took an unexpected turn. I got an entry-level job at Everett and Phillips Auction House in Detroit. Not the real name, obviously. But if you're in that world, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Very old money, very high-end clients, that kind of place. I started in estate sales, basically cataloging belongings after wealthy people passed away. Not exactly glamorous work, but it paid the bills. The first few months were pretty routine. Logging china sets, cataloging old furniture. Nothing special. Then came the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston was an elderly widow with no children. Everyone thought her jewelry collection was mostly costume pieces. Rooms and rooms full of it. And that's when Grandma's jewelry lessons finally came back. I was going through one tray when something caught my attention. An Art Deco brooch. Nothing flashy, but something about it felt wrong. The weight wasn't right for costume jewelry. The clasp was too detailed, too precise. I spent my entire lunch break researching maker marks, then stayed after work using the company's antique jewelry databases. The more I looked, the more convinced I became. This wasn't costume jewelry. It was real. The problem was, I was the new girl. Nobody was going to believe me if I walked in claiming we'd accidentally found treasure. So I did what debate team taught me. I prepared. Carefully. I spent 2 weeks during lunch breaks and evenings learning everything I could about Art Deco jewelry authentication. I even used some of my tiny savings to pay for an online gemology course. Finally, I worked up the nerve to approach my boss, Mr. Harrison. I brought a full presentation, comparison photos, historical records, everything. The conversation went something like this. Me, "Sir, I think we might have something significant in the Kingston collection." Mr. Harrison barely looked up from his phone. "Sarah, we've already cataloged those as costume jewelry." "I know, but look at these maker marks. They match Cartier signatures from 1925. That finally got his attention. "Where did you learn all this?" Long story short, that costume brooch sold at auction for $47,000. Turns out it was part of a rare collection made for a European family in the 1920s. But here's the real kicker. After that, Harrison started trusting me. He began handing me other pieces to authenticate. Suddenly, all those years sorting Grandma's jewelry collection actually meant something. I threw myself into learning everything I could. Online courses, estate sales, research. I even started carrying around a little notebook filled with authentication procedures. My apartment started looking like a jewelry scholar had completely lost their mind. Vintage hallmarks taped to walls, printouts everywhere, authentication charts covering entire tables. But it started paying off. I kept finding things other people missed, building connections, learning the market, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was finally building something. Family still remained remarkably uninterested. At Sunday dinners, which I still attended like a fool, conversations usually went something like this. "Mom, Emma still works at that antique place, right?" "Me? Auction house. And actually, I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece." Chloe cutting me off. "Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this charm bracelet I got at the mall." But honestly, by then I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I'd found something that was completely mine. Something I was actually good at. Something that had absolutely nothing to do with being Chloe's sister or the family disappointment. Then came the Rothschild collection. About 2 years into working at the auction house, huge old money estate. People in the industry were talking about it nonstop. I was helping catalog the jewelry collection when I noticed something strange. A pretty ordinary-looking Art Nouveau piece everyone else had completely ignored. I spent 3 days researching it, barely slept, and eventually I figured it out. It belonged to a private collection from a famous French jeweler that had supposedly disappeared during World War II. When it sold at auction for $238,000, Harrison called me into his office. I thought I was getting promoted. Instead, he said something that completely changed my life. Emma, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication business. At first, I laughed. Me? Start a business? With what money? But the idea stayed with me. I started taking tiny freelance jobs on the side. Word spread. Private collectors started reaching out. One night, I was sitting in my apartment surrounded by jewelry books and authentication tools when it finally hit me. I could actually do this. I could build something of my own. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I emptied my savings, took out a loan against my car, and rented a tiny office in a bad part of town. People thought I was completely insane. Maybe I was. The office was basically a storage room above a Chinese restaurant, about the size of a college dorm room. The rent was cheap because the place constantly smelled like orange chicken, and the Wi-Fi only worked if you stood near the window. But it was mine. The first few months were interesting, and by interesting, I mean terrifying. I'd wake up at 4 in the morning, covered in cold sweat, trying to calculate how many months I had before my savings disappeared. Loan payments felt like a rope around my neck. My office furniture consisted of a folding table from a thrift store and a chair I literally found sitting on a curb. Don't worry, I cleaned it. But in the world of high-end jewelry, reputation and connections are everything. And my time at the auction house had given me both. I started small, authentication work for local antique dealers. My rates were lower than the bigger firms, but people started noticing my attention to detail. Word spread. 6 months later, I got my first huge break. A dealer I knew called me about a collection of Victorian brooches. The owner wanted everything authenticated before selling it. Turns out it was a massive collection spanning 3 generations. I worked almost 2 straight weeks on it. Barely slept. Documented everything. And I found 2 extremely rare pieces everyone thought were replicas. The owner was so happy, she not only paid my fee, she also gave me 10% commission after the sale. $86,000. More money than I'd made in the previous 2 years combined. Suddenly, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Private collectors, estate lawyers, inheritance cases. Even my old auction house started sending work my way. I'm pretty sure Harrison was helping behind the scenes. Thanks, boss. By year 2, I'd hired my first employee, Jenny, a recent gemology graduate who reminded me way too much of myself at that age. Brilliant, quiet, easy to overlook. She's now my head of authentication and worth her weight in gold. The company grew faster than I ever expected. We moved into a real office downtown. Goodbye mystery restaurant smell. Built an entire team of specialists. And slowly I developed a reputation for finding things everyone else missed. You would not believe how many valuable historical jewelry pieces end up sitting in attics because people think they're costume jewelry. But success created a different problem. The bigger the company became, the harder it got to keep it hidden from my family. They still thought I worked at some little antique shop. At family dinners, Chloe would make comments like, "Emma, I found some old jewelry I was going to donate. Maybe your little shop wants it." Meanwhile, earlier that morning, I'd authenticated a piece worth over $1 million. Sure, I'll take a look. Mom would introduce me to people like, "This is my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something." Meanwhile, I'd already been quoted in Forbes under the company name and we'd opened our 3rd office. And honestly, keeping it secret started becoming weirdly fun, like a private joke. I'd sit there at Sunday dinner in Target clothes, listening to Chloe talk about her entry-level marketing job while knowing I just closed deals worth more than her yearly salary. I even started making little games for myself, like wearing authentic luxury jewelry to family gatherings just to see if anyone noticed. They never did. Not once. Chloe once spent 20 minutes showing everyone her expensive designer watch. Meanwhile, I was wearing a vintage watch worth more than her car. Managing growth became the real challenge. By year 5, we'd opened offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I spent more time in airports than in my own bed. We built a reputation for discretion. Turns out a lot of wealthy people want their jewelry authenticated without the rest of the world knowing about it. The money became enormous. We eventually had to hire an entire team of financial advisors. Still, I kept my lifestyle pretty modest. I bought a nice house, not flashy, just comfortable. I drove a high-end car that didn't scream expensive. The only place I really spent money was my home office. Advanced authentication equipment, top security, and a custom-built vault that looked ridiculous. The irony was unbelievable. My family thought I was struggling financially because I was helping them. Mom would say things like, "It's so sweet of Emma helping out. She must be living on instant noodles to make this work." Meanwhile, I just authenticated a collection that earned me a commission bigger than their mortgage. You know what's strange about success? The more successful you become, the harder it gets to explain it to people who've always seen you as less than. It's like trying to explain color to someone who's only ever seen black and white. By then, my company was thriving. We basically had the Midwest high-end jewelry authentication market cornered. But every Sunday, I'd still drive over to my parents' house and play Emma the modest antique worker. The disconnect had become ridiculous. Morning conference calls with collectors in Dubai, afternoons authenticating million-dollar pieces, then evenings sitting at family dinners listening to Chloe talk about tiny workplace victories like bringing coffee to her boss without spilling it. One Sunday stands out in my memory. I'd just finished a huge deal. Authenticated a missing Cartier piece that had been sitting in a safe deposit box for 40 years. The commission alone, 7 figures. I drove straight from the meeting to my parents' house, still riding that high. Mom looked at me and said, "Emma, honey, is everything okay? Your clothes are looking a little worn." "Oh, trying to save money." I said that while wearing a cashmere sweater that cost more than they would have guessed, I made in a month. Then Chloe jumped in. "Maybe if you got a real job instead of playing with old jewelry?" Dad cut in. "Chloe, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you." I almost choked trying not to laugh. Then came the monthly transfers. Aunt Diane told me my parents were struggling. Medical bills, loans, talk about selling the house. And despite everything, I couldn't let that happen. It was still my childhood home, so I started anonymously sending $5,000 every month. When they asked where the money was coming from, I told them I was contributing $1,000 and living on rice and beans. They assumed the rest came from family. Chloe, of course, took credit for inspiring everyone to help. Watching her spend my money was surreal. My parents started treating me with this weird combination of pity and pride. Like I was some tragic self-sacrificing daughter surviving on instant noodles to save the family. Meanwhile, Chloe started showing up with expensive bags, fancy vacations, luxury purchases, and I knew exactly where that money was going. But I stayed quiet. The irony was unbelievable. They thought I was poor, while I was financing everything. Then came the MBA drama. Chloe announced that she wanted to go back to school for an MBA. Private university, of course. Only the best for the golden child. Mom called me crying, explaining that they couldn't afford it. I suggested maybe Chloe could look at state schools. They had good programs, too. Mom immediately responded, "Oh, honey, you don't understand. Your sister needs to maintain certain standards." Then she casually asked if I could increase my monthly contribution for a few years. So I raised it, $7,000 every month. My accounts barely noticed. But watching them praise Chloe for taking initiative with her education while assuming I was surviving on noodles to help the family, that one stung a little. Here's the real part that kills me. Around that same time, I was invited to give a guest seminar at the exact business school Chloe wanted to attend. My family had no idea. The dean invited me personally to speak about luxury authentication and business growth. I had to make up an excuse for missing Sunday dinner that week. My real life had started feeling like some secret identity. By day, I was running a multi-million-dollar company. By night, well, on Sundays, I was still Emma, the disappointing daughter who worked with old jewelry. The pressure of pretending kept getting heavier. Chloe kept making comments about my career. Mom kept apologizing to people for my modest lifestyle. Dad kept suggesting I should get a real job. I think part of me always knew this secret would explode eventually. I just never expected Thanksgiving to be the thing that blew everything apart. It started 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Mom called crying about her back pain. She'd been diagnosed with a herniated disc, and the idea of cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 20 people completely overwhelmed her. Now I'd love to tell you I offered to help purely out of kindness. But honestly, I was tired of pretending her dry turkey tasted good. So I said, "Why don't I handle dinner this year? I can have it catered." Immediately, "Oh, honey, we can't afford catering." "Don't worry about the cost. I've been saving." Mom immediately got worried. "You're not taking out loans, are you?" I arranged everything through a catering company I used for business events. Amazing food, the kind that makes you question why anyone cooks at home. It cost more than my parents thought I made in 2 months. But whatever. Thanksgiving morning came, and I was actually in a good mood. I brought my laptop because I needed to keep an eye on a major Hong Kong auction. A client was interested in a rare Art Nouveau necklace, and I needed to be ready in case they won the bid. The food arrived right on time. Everything looked perfect. And naturally, Chloe had something to say. "Store-bought stuffing? Really, Emma? Mom's is way better." This from the girl who once set off the smoke detector making toast. Mom spent the whole afternoon apologizing for not cooking herself. But you could tell everyone loved the food. Even Chloe stopped talking after trying the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts. I stepped away before dessert to check on the auction. Set up in my old bedroom, the one Mom had kept exactly the same since high school. Meanwhile, Chloe's room had been remodeled 3 times. And that's when everything went wrong. I'd left my authentication software open, multiple tabs, account information, current contracts, live auction pages, things I never thought twice about. Chloe walked in without knocking. Some things never change. She said she needed my phone charger. Then she looked at my laptop screen. And I swear I saw it happen. That expression. Like she just found proof that her pathetic older sister was finally hiding something. Chloe smirked. "Let's go show everyone what Emma's really been doing." Before I could stop her, she grabbed my laptop and walked straight into the dining room. Picture this. 20 people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents. Everyone full of expensive food and slightly tipsy from wine they thought came from Trader Joe's. Then Chloe held up my laptop like she just solved a crime. "Time to see what kind of important work Emma's doing on Thanksgiving." And she turned the screen around. The room went silent, completely silent. The kind of silence where you suddenly hear clocks ticking. My screen showed everything. Current account balance, $12.4 million. Pending authentication contract, $485,000. Recent transaction, $1.2 million. Company quarterly report, $4.2 million. Chloe's face changed so fast I almost missed it. Confusion, shock, disbelief, then something close to nausea. She actually swayed and quietly said, "This can't be right." Mom immediately looked up. "Honey, what is it?" Then Chloe looked at everyone, voice shaking. "Emma's rich. Emma is rich." Chaos. Absolute chaos. If silence could somehow get louder, the room managed to do it. Then Mom started laughing. Actually laughing. "Don't be ridiculous. Emma works at that little antique place." I slowly stood up and straightened my sweater. "Yes, actually, Mom. I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country. For years. Those antique shop jokes? I authenticate pieces worth millions. That little business nobody ever asked me about? It has offices in 3 cities. Dad nearly choked on his drink. Aunt Diane dropped her fork. Someone at the table started coughing. Then Mom stopped laughing. Her face changed, red, then darker. She stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. "You have millions? And you let us struggle? Struggle? I send you $7,000 every month." Mom stared at me. "While sitting on millions? Your sister has student loans." And there it was. Not congratulations. Not "we're proud of you." Not wow. Just anger that I hadn't given them more. Chloe immediately started crying, talking about how she deserved to know, how I betrayed the family. Dad joined in. "How could you be so selfish? We're your parents. We raised you." That was it. Years of being ignored, years of being dismissed, years of being treated like I was the family disappointment. Everything finally came out. Raised me? You shipped me off to grandma's every time I sneezed. You missed every achievement, every award, every milestone, because Chloe might feel left out. You never saved $1 for my college but took loans for hers. And now you're angry because I built something for myself? The next 5 minutes were complete chaos. Mom screaming about family obligations, Dad yelling about ungrateful children. Chloe crying 1 second and demanding to know exactly how much money I had the next. Meanwhile, the catering staff awkwardly tried serving dessert like none of this was happening. I grabbed my laptop, picked up my bag, the same bag Mom once complimented because she thought it was a fake, and I walked out. As I headed toward my car, I could still hear Mom behind me, already talking about how to spend my money, something about Chloe's MBA, something about a new car. On the drive home, my phone exploded. Texts, calls, notifications. The family group chat completely melted down. Chloe started posting online about hidden family wealth and selfish siblings. The next few days felt like watching a hurricane destroy everything in slow motion. Within an hour of leaving Thanksgiving dinner, I had 47 missed calls and over 200 messages. Mom's texts followed a very interesting progression. How dare you walk out on family? We need to discuss this like adults. Your sister deserves a share of your success. I've already called a realtor. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Meanwhile, Chloe had fully transformed into a social media warrior. She posted this giant rant about her millionaire sister secretly hoarding wealth while her poor family struggled. The comments were insane. Distant relatives, old classmates, people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had very strong opinions about my money. But here's the part that really got me. Chloe actually posted about all the years she spent trying to help my career, giving advice, supporting me, helping me move up from that little antique job. The betrayal hurt so much, I almost threw my phone. You know what career advice Chloe once gave me? Maybe try selling jewelry on Etsy. If you're not familiar with the term flying monkeys, that's when toxic family members send other people to guilt trip you. Aunt Susan, who I saw maybe once every 3 years, suddenly called to remind me that family is everything. Uncle Bob, who I'm pretty sure still thought I was 12, emailed me a long speech about sharing wealth. Even my third cousin's wife's sister somehow got my number and decided she needed to explain family obligations to me. But the real fun started when they showed up at my office. Monday morning, I walked in and found Mom, Dad, and Chloe sitting in reception. They had apparently told Jenny they had an appointment for authentication services. Chloe sat there holding her designer bag like it contained national secrets. The conversation went exactly how you'd expect. Mom, we've discussed this as a family. A family discussion without the family member you're discussing. Mom ignored me. And we think it's only fair if you create trust funds for everyone. Then Chloe jumped in. I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly. Dad followed right behind her. And your mother and I have been talking about retiring. Maybe Florida. Maybe a beach house. I just stared at them. Did everyone somehow miss the part where I've been sending $7,000 every month? Chloe rolled her eyes. That's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us. You owe us? For what exactly? The years of being ignored, the missed graduations, the constant comparisons? Mom immediately snapped back. Don't be dramatic, Emma. We gave you everything. No, I gave myself everything. And I'm done. Right there in my office lobby, I pulled out my phone and canceled every monthly transfer. Immediately. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. Chloe started crying. Again. Then things got ugly. They refused to leave. I actually had to call security. Watching my 60-year-old mother being escorted out of my office while yelling about ungrateful children was one of the strangest moments of my life. Jenny quietly asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, but I did put all of their names on the building's do not admit list. The harassment went on for weeks. New phone numbers, fake email accounts. They even started trying to contact me through customer service. Eventually, I had my lawyer send a formal notice threatening harassment charges. Then Mom played her final card. She called Grandma. But here's the thing about Grandma. Grandma was smarter than all of them combined. You know what she said? Good for Emma. About time somebody in this family succeeded on her own terms. Mom didn't speak to her for almost 2 months after that. It's been 6 months now. I moved, changed my phone number, upgraded security, and honestly, the company is doing better than ever. Turns out family drama attracts a surprising number of high-profile clients. People appreciated how quietly I handled everything. Chloe still posts passive-aggressive things online about toxic wealth and family betrayal. Apparently, she's trying to start her own jewelry authentication business now. Good luck with that. Mom and Dad finally stopped trying to contact me after my lawyer explained exactly what harassment charges would mean. Now they tell everyone they never wanted my money anyway, and that they're praying for me. Honestly, for the first time in my life, I finally feel free. No more Sunday dinners, no more pretending, no more making myself smaller just so Chloe could feel bigger. My therapist says I'm finally learning healthy boundaries. I think I'm finally learning how to live my own life. Oh, and one last thing. Chloe, that Cartier bracelet from your latest photos? Definitely fake. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories. Edit, answers to some common questions. Yes, I am still in therapy. No, I do not regret cutting them off. Yes, Grandma is doing great. She's coming to visit next month to help me catalog a new collection. One last thing to Chloe. I know you're probably reading this. That bracelet you're wearing in your latest Instagram photo? Definitely fake, just saying.